don't wish to be seen, please keep your camera off. And also, if you do switch your microphone on and speak with me, which I do like to speak with people on the sessions, you can ask me any questions you like, and we'll have various pause points during the training. But please remember that will then be made public, and this video will be published on the YouTube channel for Turn It On to support everybody else that couldn't come along here today or wishes just to have a look at what we've been up to. If you want to place any questions in the conversation for me, that's a little speech bubble. I will periodically come back over and pick those up and do the best I can to answer your questions. So without any further delay, let's get started. We are a global training partner with Microsoft, so today a lot of what we're doing is hand in hand with initiatives from Microsoft, and also trying to get schools, trusts, academies, colleges all together and thinking about how they can move forwards and bring about digital transformation. We are first of all going to quickly stop and look at the Innovative Educator Expert Program that this is all based around. And for those people that weren't, those people that are here and joined me from a previous session at launch, this will just consolidate the whole structure of the program. So there's going to be 3 steps, and you need to, if you want to submit your application, have it in by July 2021. You can nominate. You're thinking, how do I get to these resources? This slide deck will be made available at the end of the training, and you'll be able to pick up a copy and use the links from there. The first step is to register yourself on the Microsoft, and then once you're in there and you've created an account, it can be either with your personal email address or your educational email address, you need to undertake a couple of courses. Most of the beginner level courses are 500 points each. And if you haven't done so already, once you've completed those, you'll become a certified expert. And then you will move on from there and you'll start your journey. But you've got to have that 1,000 points in the Microsoft Education Centre to start with before you can progress further. We will then work with you over a series of webinars, and this is really number 1 of starting to look at evidence and also content that could be used for your 2-minute video or your SWAY application to explain to Microsoft why you want to become an MIEE. If you think that that's for you, we will give you pretty much all the evidence you need, or give you ideas to build that application. The thing that you'll need to do is just commit to the time of coming along to these. We appreciate not everybody can make every single record them, but additionally, if you watch what we're doing here, go away and have a go wherever you are working, then you'll soon have enough evidence to get together a portfolio that will make a really striking video, and then you can get it submitted in July. You don't have to submit before then, and there's no need to submit early, and I would urge you to wait to the end of the process. If any of you haven't been to the Microsoft Education Centre before, you can see in the little screenshot on the right there what it looks like. In the very top right-hand corner is where you sign in, and then you can search in the top bar for any courses that interest you. And today we will direct you to 2 courses to get started on, one on Teams and another one on OneNote Class Notebook, and we'll look at both of those applications in today's session. Once you've got all of that completed, your journey will start, and you'll be on the left there with your 1,000 points, and you'll be an MIE, and then gradually you will build up to submitting to become an MIEE. That can lead on to even bigger things. So we've got a couple of schools that we worked with last year on the MIEE course, and 2 teachers there have convinced their leadership teams to become showcase schools, and they are in the process of becoming incubator showcase schools with the aspiration to become fully fledged showcase schools in the next couple of years. So it can bring about a very big long journey of educational transformation. Or you may say, look, it's just for my CPD and I want to be a catalyst in the school for change, but maybe we're not going to go that far. So it's up to you how far you want to take it, and it's also up to you whether you want to submit your application, but we are here to support you with that rather than having to go it alone if that's something you're interested in. Our aims of our course is really quite simple. It's 3-pronged. It's about making classrooms and learning more accessible.
It's also about making that learning really engaging, drawing people in, making it enjoyable for the teachers to deliver, maybe opening up an avenue you hadn't considered before that will really get your pupils or students enthused about what you're doing. And also, it's really key that we don't want to add work here. One of the key messages that we have is we're trying to reduce teacher workload through using these platforms. When you submit your application, you've got 4 questions to answer about why you consider yourself to be an MIE, want to be an MIEE. Also, how you're going to incorporate Microsoft technologies into the place of work that you are at, the impact on the learning that you intend to have, and what you would then do after becoming qualified as an MIEE, and where you want to take things in the future. So a little bit about your aspirations. I had a few people who contacted me after the initial launch session and said, well, I just really would get a clear timeline on this. So we popped one together for you. So as a sequence of events, we had the launch session in January, and that course from Turn It On will run all the way through, concluding in June. The window to submit your applications will open in May and close in July. So that's when you can submit your application to Microsoft. There's normally other events that take place during this time frame. There's normally something called the E2 events. At the moment, that's up for discussion, and it could be a virtual event or it may get held over, but normally that's an event that you can go along to if you're lucky enough to get your application selected, and you get an all expenses paid trip to somewhere in the world to connect with other MIEEs and share your experiences and learn lots of new skills at the same time. The timeline isn't going to change. That's now locked in, so you know roughly when you are working towards dates, and the final date when it will all be announced by Microsoft will be in August, when, after independent adjudication from a panel that Microsoft brings in externally, the people that are successful with their applications will be announced, and there'll be a page. At the moment it says 2020, 2021, but it will be replaced with a 21-22 cohort page, and your MIEE qualification stays valid for 2 years, and then you can decide whether you want to go for another application of MIEE or whether you want to go for something more advanced, like becoming an MIEE trainer to work with other educational institutions, or whether you want to become an MIEE fellow working with people in your local area. So there's lots of scope as to what to do, but it's really good for personal and professional development, and it will open up a lot of doors for you. So today we're going to move away from the application process and the MIEE course, and we're going to come back to what we're doing in relation to looking at the first 2 applications that you'd be very wise to use in your MIEE application, and that is using Teams to transform learning, and also how OneNote can play a role. These are the areas that we will have a look at today. There's quite a bit to get through. It is an ambitious program, but what we want to do is give you lots of exposure to ideas, and then for you to go away and delve a little bit further. But also, Turn It On runs many other training courses in conjunction with Microsoft. So if you quite find today is a valuable experience, if you go to www.turniton.co.uk/events, on our events page, there'll be other events that you can sign up to. And for instance, we'll have a much deeper delve into OneNote Class Notebook on some additional training sessions beyond today. One of the first questions I often get asked is, well, how on earth do we get Teams? And I would say it's probably the most accessible online learning platform there is. You can have a web browser open on pretty much any device you like, from a computer running Linux, Windows, Apple, Mac computer running Mac OS, Chromebooks, tablets. They will all just open up on a web browser, and if you go to www.office.com, you can get into Office 365 and reach Teams. Or if you've got the ability to do so, you can install a dedicated Teams app, and there's a computer app available for Windows, Apple Macs, and there's now one for Chromebooks that came about in December. If you've got an Android tablet or an iPad OS tablet, you can install a dedicated Teams app on those. So it doesn't matter which device you're using, you can get yourself onto it. And even if that device is quite old, if you download one of the 3 new web browsers in the bottom right hand corner, the Microsoft Edge browser, the Google Chrome browser, or the Safari browser from Apple, Those can update the browser available on an old device, and again, Teams will run usually quite happily in that older device. So we appreciate that not all families have a high number of devices in the house, or not all families can afford a new device. Well, just simply by having an up-to-date browser, that gets you in. The philosophy from Microsoft behind using Teams is that it's a single hub with everyone connected, regardless of their role in your organization, whether they've got a teaching and learning focus, whether they are focused more on developing the staff and HR and personnel, or it could be that they work in the office admin team or a business manager. Whoever it is, there is a way for them to connect and collaborate using Teams. There's also the great scope that it brings all of your applications together in one place. So it acts as a digital hub in that way too. There's lots and lots of software in Office 365 that crosses over and works really well in Teams itself. And you often don't have to leave Teams to access another piece of software, and you will see that demonstrated. But what Microsoft have done is they've linked out with other platform providers. So if you subscribe to other third parties, such as you use Kahoot for questions or you use Moodle for your VLE, you can bring all of that inside of Teams as well, and you no longer have to go out to separate tabs in the web browser. But Teams can also bring in things like your communication, so it can start to replace telephony if you want. It can bring in instant messenger features, and there's other applications that Microsoft link with in companies that they've acquired, such as Flipgrid for formative and summative assessment. Now you might think that's all well and great, and I might be using it somewhat, or I might not be using it at all, but how on earth do we go about setting it up? So that was going to be one of our first considerations today. You need to think about how you want to organize and get everybody into Office 365. They're going to need an account if they want to be part of your organization. Now, you could do that one of two ways. You can either have what's called a sync tool, and that will link up with your MIS system, whatever you're using, whether it's Capita Sims, RM Integris, Arbor, ScholarPack, Bromcom, whatever tool you use. And that will transfer data out of your MIS system and into your Office 365. The really big plus point about having one of those syncs, and Microsoft has got a product called School Data Sync, is that it takes care of itself. And as long as the team managing your MIS system ensures it's up to date for pupils and students on roll, or staff coming and going and starting new contracts or ending old contracts, they will always get attached to the correct teams, and they will get an account created with the correct permissions, because somebody on your IT administration side would apply those in the policies in Office 365. Once you've got accounts created, particularly for pupils or students, you need to have some sort of naming convention. We often use it, turn it on, the academic year of intake or the academic year that they join as their cohort. So that if you're looking at a large number of students in a very big institution, particularly in a secondary or an FE or an HE setting, you could quickly know which academic year they belong to and identify, particularly if you've got someone maybe in a meeting who shouldn't be there, but it makes it far, far easier. Then it comes down to managing the team. You can either manage it manually by changing some of the settings, and I'll branch out the presentation in a bit and show you that, or you can have policies applied in what's called the Teams Admin Center, and that would be a job to speak with your IT support, get them on board on this journey, and make sure they understand what your vision is and they understand how you want Teams to look and feel. It won't be the way you wish it to be first time. It will change, and you will gradually get used to it, and you'll evolve your opinion of how you want things switched on and off. And nothing is set in tablets of stone. Everything can be reconfigured. You just have to be clear about how you want that to work. And it may be that you need to give your IT support a little bit of time to go away and look at how that's going to be achieved. If you are from the UK, there is a Dfe Funded Program available at the moment, and that Dfe Funded Program is available for schools that haven't yet set up Teams for students and pupils, and you can get £2,000 for a secondary school or a college. You can get £1,500 for a primary school, and it depends if you're from a special school whether you are deemed all through primary or secondary as to the amount of funding you can get. But you can get a provider such as Turn It On to come in and set all this up for you and claim the money from the DFE and then have it paid for you, so you can get all this set up for free if you aren't yet using it. If it's something you're interested in, do please contact us. I'll be around at the end of the meeting and I'll give you some addresses to contact us on. When you get around to launching it, it's really important that in that educational transformation that you make sure that everybody is coming with you and they understand where the end point is. You will constantly be reevaluating. You'll be having a 5-year plan that will evolve, and it won't be the same at the end as it was at the start. But you need to make sure you've got things like digital leaders in place for staff. It's impossible to have the capacity for change if you don't. I've found great success with pupil and student ambassadors from upper year groups particularly. So it'd be 10 and 11 in secondary, or 5, 6 in a primary. And they go back and they work with younger year groups. They can, in COVID times, they can record videos and send them to other bubbles. But there's lots of ways to help that roll out and also settle pupils that might just not know where things are. When you are going into this digital world, it's really important that you set expectations. Certainly for the UK, we're anticipating going back to school next week, and it might be that you're not using Teams for distance learning anymore, but you very much still continue with hybrid learning where you've got some bubbles with you and others at home. Well, Teams can facilitate that, but you need to be really clear about expectations and class charters. And then you're going to need to get people familiar with the layout and just being able to navigate it successfully to be really comfortable with doing things like joining meetings or setting homeworks and so forth. And never underestimate the capacity of parents to support you. So get them on board, show them what to do. And if you're going for the Dfe program, there's lots of resources there that you can share with parents that they will be able to access and get them involved in supporting their children or the child under their guardianship with accessing the work that you're setting on Teams. When you're setting up a virtual class space as a class team, you do need to choose one of 4 options. You can see on the left there with the purple box around it, a class team is the thing that you will require. That will give you specialist features such as a version of OneNote called OneNote Class Notebook. It also gives you the ability to have meeting features you wouldn't necessarily get in other types of teams, such as the PLC, the staff, or the other. Those would normally be used for staff-to-staff forums, but if you're having staff-to-pupil or staff-to-student, it's definitely a class team. What that looks like is this. If you've got the correct admin rights, when you click on Join or Create a Team, you'll see these 2 buttons. You click Create Team, you choose one of the 4, and we're going to choose Class Team. And then you need to name up your class team and then give it a description and choose whether it's going to be a public or a private team. A private team is only accessible by people that are invited into it. A standard public team will be available to everyone and they can request to join it. So you choose how you want it. And then the next question usually is, once everyone's in there, what do all these buttons do? So there's lots of guides online, and you will get them from the courses we're going to recommend at the end of this on the Microsoft Education Center, where it just helps you orientate yourself and understand how Teams is led out. So that's a really good point for us to swap over and start to look at a live version of Teams itself. So I'm just going to swap screens currently. While I move over, are there any questions at all? Anything anybody wants to place into the conversation bar that they want to ask at this point? See, somebody's just asking one. Just moving over, so you'll see the Office 365 landing page now. Just wait for that question to be entered. Yes, we can give you a link absolutely to our YouTube channel where you can find all of the previous training sessions. Tiana, that's here today from the Turn On team, she will drop those links in and you'll be able to then click them from the chat and you'll be able to get everything you need from there. And all of our other sessions that we've ever done are all on that channel. There's a dedicated channel for the MIEE, but all of the other types of training sessions that we've delivered with Microsoft are there too. So you'll be able to watch anything you like and it's all curated and organized. So you'll be absolutely fine to go and check that out. Tiana will drop that into this conversation during the meeting, so you're able to get it from there. The Office 365 landing page is where most people will come to when they log into Office 365 when they get an account created the first time. You need to navigate either to Teams on the side if you're using the web version, or go to the app launcher here and go to Teams if you're using the web version. If you're using the app, you just enter your account username, which is your email address, and your password, and it will open straight up. I am going to use the online version, and in the online version, I'm in Edge browser today from Microsoft, but you can use any of those modern browsers that I discussed with you. And you will then, once you've got some teams created, and that's where you create teams in the top right hand corner, following the process we looked at on the slide deck, you will arrive here. You can make teams for pretty much any function in the school. So a lot of schools have a staff team, and then in the staff team, you've got, or in any team for that matter, you've got these things down the left-hand side called channels. They are ways to divide up information, and you target it to audiences by their role in the school in a staff team. So here we've got admin, business manager, Senko, leadership team, and so forth. Well, they've got a padlock. They're a private team, and that means you would only see that if you were invited to either in as a member or you were made an owner of that team, or that channel, sorry, in the team. But here, for instance, leadership team is what's called a standard channel, and then it's open, and people can just jump in there and they can request to come in and access what's in there, and you can deny access to them. They don't instantly get in if you don't entitle them to. But in a staff team, you would enroll all of your staff into the general channel, and every single team has to have a general channel for it to exist. So you'll get used to seeing that. And in Teams itself, down the left hand side here, you've got the me space. These are the options that relate to you, and across the top you've got the we space. These are the options and the functions that relate to we, us as a community. And here in the staff team it will be staff, but if it was a class team it would be staff and pupils or students. Very quickly, once you get into your staff team and you're working, you've got the post section, and then what you can do in here is you can start having conversations with each other as a community, and that works really, really well, particularly in the context of where we find ourselves at the moment, where we might not be able to get everyone back into school because of social distancing. So you've got some staff at home, some staff working in other buildings possibly, or some staff in different rooms in different areas of the school, but you can keep in touch with each other using posts or important information, such as there might be a moderation meeting happening there, or updates about reopening for next week. If something's really important, you can pin it onto part of your feed here, or you can scroll back up, and if people are joining meetings in Teams, then you can do it from there, and it just flows through. The posts itself, in a staff team, anybody can access the posts, and you can make a new post or use the reply button that you can see there to respond to other people's posts. Some schools use this a lot, but you need to consider how you're going to use it in conjunction with email. If it's something short and snappy, I would say it goes in posts. If it's still paragraphs of text, then an email would be a better place for it. But people get used to this really quickly, and what you can still get is a community feel, even though people may not all be together and working physically as a team next to each other. So structuring the staff team broadly works like that. Another reason that you have channels is that you can keep these posts private. So in the general channel, all the staff will be seeing this. But if I was the business manager, I might want to be having a private chat with the head teacher in my school, and then I can have the conversation there, and nobody in the general channel is aware that this post here has happened. They can't see it because they're not a member of this private business manager channel. Another advantage of having channels by roles in a school is that you can have your files stored separately. So traditionally we've all had servers with shared areas, and I might have had a business manager shared area. Well, now I could have all of my business manager files here privately, and I could access them, and maybe the head could dip in if they wanted to. But also over here in the general staff channel, we've got another files tab, and that files tab could replicate the whole staff shared area that used to be a shared area on the server, but now we've got it here all in our staff team. People that would have absolute overview of all these channels would normally be somebody like IT administrator or head teacher of the school, but otherwise, if you were a classroom teacher, maybe you're a support assistant, maybe you work in the admin team, you'll only see the channels that are relevant to you. So if you worked in the admin team, you'd see the general channel because everybody's in the general channel, and you would see admin team, and you probably wouldn't see any of those other three. So it really depends on your involvement in the school as to how you get your channels. But you would certainly have a staff team, and instead of having lots of separate teams, the philosophy is that you have these channels here, so everything's staff-based, happens in one team. If you start to have loads and loads of teams, what you end up are all of these thumbnails, and people just get lost. There's too many teams to navigate. So keep it organized in that way. You'll be able to see here, you can replace expensive other platforms with teams as well. So you could get your governing body involved, and you could have a dedicated governors team, so you could have full governors meetings held through teams. All the governors could have meetings in the general channel, and then you could have various subcommittee channels for those other subcommittees to meet in private if they wished. The same would work if you're an academy in a trust. You can have a central trust team with finance, operations, and leadership and so forth, and then heads within the academies in that trust could link into the various channels over here, or the central trust team might decide to keep those channels separate. So there's lots of scope for how you want to build your team's environment. We mentioned at the beginning of all of this class teams. So primary class teams are usually set up with just a general channel. It's less confusing for the pupils using it, because when they come in, they will end up just seeing the general channel, and then they see the posts associated with their class. If you're working in a secondary setting or a college, you would normally have a team for each subject taught, and then the subject coordinator or the phase leaders would have access to all the different channels, and you set out your different cohorts or your sets in the secondary. So here I've got English Year 7, Set 1, Set 2, Set 3. And then, for instance, the English coordinator will be able to see all of those channels, but the teachers only see their relevant sets. So if I taught Year 7, Set 2 in English and Year 8, Set 3, those would be the two channels I would see, as well as the general channel. And students and pupils only see the single channel they're enrolled in for the purpose of going to their lesson, but it's in a virtual environment. So you do need to give some real consideration before rushing into how you want your team's environment structured. Otherwise, it becomes really messy and difficult to navigate. And you've got the additional scope. If you want to give people the ability to create special teams, they could either do it with inside their subject, or they could have intervention teams here, so that all the maths intervention happens in another one, and then you have a channel in there for each year group for the maths intervention. So it's up to you as to how you want to structure it, but planning in the first place for that educational transformation is really important to get it right. If I go into the primary classroom, we have extensively talked about posts, but we haven't shown you how to make one. You can reply to one by pressing the reply button there if somebody's already put something in, and then you get a set of formatting options, which we'll look at in a bit more detail in a moment. But if you want to start a new conversation, you click the new conversation button at the bottom. By default, it will just let you have a text box, and you can type something in, such as hello, how is work going this afternoon? That might be fine. Just you're checking in with your pupils. They're busy working on something you set earlier, and you just want to get some feedback from them and let them ask you questions if they're stuck. Or you can press the A with the pen, and that's the formatting button, and that will open up a wider editing box here where you've still got the main body of the message, but now you've got a title. So that might be PM work. We could pop that in there. Here along the bottom, you've got other ways of including information in your post. So if you wanted to attach a file, you press the paperclip. You can either upload it locally from your computer. You can pick things up from your OneDrive, and OneDrive is your default place moving forwards. It would replace having a home drive on the server, and it means you can get to all of your work from anywhere. Or you can go and browse to another team and channel if you've got access to them, so that collaboration across your school or your college is really easy. And it means that people haven't got resources in silos, and you haven't got everyone reinventing the wheel. They can borrow from each other, they can collaborate together. That's that philosophy of being one digital hub with teams. You've got in your class teams a very much reduced version of emojis that you can use with students and pupils. They won't cause offense, and they certainly aren't as wide ranging as the ones you would find in a messaging platform outside of Teams. It's an educational set. But what you will need to do in that class charter and setting expectations exercise when you bring pupils and students in here is you need to tell them when it's acceptable to use those and when it's not acceptable. Otherwise, you're going to spend the first few weeks battling emojis everywhere, and you just need to tell them to tone it down. So just get them to do that. It's frustrating that you can't switch that off in isolation. If you switch off emojis, so switch off other key communication features in post, you can't take them out on their own. You've also got a reduced version of Giphies. So if you want to say you're happy about something, it will bring up those. But again, they are very friendly. There's nothing there that's going to be offensive to anyone. There's nothing that's going to cause distress because it's violent or anything like that. It's all very safe. You have stickers. I use stickers a lot with pupils in class teams. Instead of writing, if I've got 30 of them talking to me and making replies, I might pop a sticker in to show that I'm happy about something. And as long as you, during that expectation setting exercise at the very beginning, tell them that's what you're going to do, they become really happy with getting a sticker in reply instead of some words, and they'll move on and they'll take it in acknowledgement that you've seen what they've said or you're happy with their contribution, and they like that way of working. You can, we won't labour it a lot this afternoon, but you can store videos in an app in Office 365 called Stream. And the beauty of Stream is that you can upload work there that you've recorded elsewhere, or recordings that you've made in Teams meetings, and then you can insert them from there, and you can then make sure that they could watch the video. So I've done that with a video up here, and there was a good afternoon video that I recorded a couple of weeks ago. But they come in, they play the video, they get a short animation at the beginning, and then a video of me introducing what we're going to do for the afternoon's learning. Recording in Teams changed recently. So if you're recording in Teams and you've associated that recording with your classroom, your video will post automatically, which sometimes is great because it saves you importing it from Stream, which is how it used to work. But sometimes it's really annoying because it's there for 20 days and you have a very difficult job of removing it. You can now remove it. If you go to your OneDrive, you'll find a folder called Recordings, as long as you set up the meeting, and you can either delete that recording or move it or break the link with the post in Teams, and it will stop everyone else seeing it. That's usually necessary if something went wrong during that recording and you don't want everybody to be watching it back. But otherwise, leaving those recordings there and those automatically posting is just one job less for you to do. It reduces your workload, and then pupils, if they weren't able to log on and join a live lesson, or they couldn't see a pre-recording somewhere else, can just go to posts and they can pick it up from there, and they can quite happily watch it when the time is right for them. Posts itself is something that it's quite universal in the way that you want to work with it. It can be used for educational reasons for setting work, but I've also had a great deal of success for pastoral reasons. Certainly, I've had groups of people contacting me that I work with saying, look, they've really found it hard for their own mental well-being to cope with being away from their friends or not being in a normal social classroom environment. So we have used Teams sometimes to completely brush the academic side of things to one side, and we've had days where we've just focused on mental well-being here in posts. It's flexible either way. If you want to control how these posts are working, you've got text formatting tools here in the middle, and that changes the text there. So you've got your bolds, italics, bullet points, and so forth. But at the very top line, you can change whether you're having a conversation, which is the box I've got at the moment, and you can swing it over to making an announcement, and that's where you get those bars from. I tend to only use announcements or coloured backgrounds for announcements when I've got something important or urgent to say. Maybe there's a change to something we planned, or it's going to be a big event tomorrow, and I can then have a headline banner in here and I can type something else into the headline. If you want to jazz it up a bit further still, you can upload an image, and that can be anything you like that you've got, or you can choose an illustration conversation from Microsoft, and that will just make it stand out and you insert it there. So it's up to you whether you want to have announcements on or just have a normal conversation. If you know you don't want a dialogue with pupils and you don't want them using that reply function, well, you have got some control over that. You can change it to only moderators can reply, and then only staff will be able to use a reply button, and it doesn't work for pupils. So quite often you do want the reply function working, but not always, and sometimes it will detract from what you're trying to achieve. The other thing that you can do here is again, reducing workloads. You can post this to your class team, and it says here it's going to go into the general channel of my demo primary classroom. But as long as I've got access to other class teams in my school, I press the select channels. And it may be that I'm a 2, 3 elementary school, and I teach across that year group entirely. So there, if I wanted to post in my other fictional year 4 class, I tick that button there, I press update, and then I'm able to post out here to the general channel in my class team, but also the general channel in the other class team, a bit like CCing people into an email. So when I press the little arrow button in the bottom corner, that will go out to the post section in my team, but it will also go across to the post section in the other team. Just going to discard that example post and just scroll up for you so you can see exactly what it looks like. So there's an example of an announcement. Here's an example of a video that's been inserted. This would have been a Teams meeting that I've set up over here in calendars. The calendar that you have in Teams is exactly the same as the Outlook calendar you have for your personal disposal in Outlook itself. It's just 2 routes to the same thing. Dialogue going with pupils, so you'll see here lots of replies going backwards and forwards about a fire that we've seen outside the window of the classroom, and it's stemmed a discussion about the Great Fire of London. So having the reply function on is useful, and if pupils are not respecting that, you've still got the ability as a member of staff to click the 3 dots over their post, and if they're a pupil, you could delete it, and that will take it away from the view of other pupils or students, and it will hide it from them, but it stays ghosted out for you so you can still see what was said. And that's really useful as well if you get somebody coming along as a parent saying, oh, I wasn't particularly happy with what happened in that class team this afternoon. Can I speak with you about that as a teacher? And you can go, of course you can, but you can reference what was said by the pupils, but they've got no awareness any longer that it's still there. They think it's just gone away from their perspective. You could also suspend individual pupils for a while if you want, and then reinstate their privileges to use Teams. You would need to apply a policy that uniquely takes them out. It's possible if you wish to do that. Before I move on from posts, I can see that there's a couple of people that have now come in. It's nice to see you. Welcome from Nigeria. I'm good to have you. It's good to see you and good to have you here. We are in the UK. It's lovely to have you along. I can also see there, Michael, you've asked a question. Is there a way to search through old posts in a general channel, or do you have to scroll through? I've never found a way to search through. It's usually just a scroll. I haven't ever discovered an intelligent search feature. Let me just right click on there and see if they've put in anything to search. No, I don't think there is, to the best of my knowledge, and click that up there and see if there's anything in there. No, I think it is a question of scrolling and going back. If you know the dates, it is handy, but I know you don't always know the date and you might be searching for something. I tend to disregard anything after about a week because it becomes a bit of a hard thing to go back and find it, and I pin anything that's really important. As you can see there, that's an example of setting homework using Teams. So there's the assignments function over there. We're not going to labour that today, but assignments is the module in Teams itself that you can use for setting distance learning and homeworks. And a lot of schools that have adopted this during lockdown are now planning to keep that and not necessarily go back to their old way of setting homework. And I've got quite a few secondary schools that have been purchasing other expensive platforms for setting homework, and they're going to abandon those and make a cost saving, and they're just going to use assignments in Teams instead. So there are potential cost savings here, as well as improving collaboration and communication. The other thing that I often get questions about, and before we leave posts, is what happens when I share a file. So if I scroll up, here's an example of a post that's been deleted, but in the reply to that post, there's been a file shared. If you share files in posts, they're going to be available to absolutely everybody, pupils and staff. And when they click on them, I said Teams will be single digital hub. Word will open up inside of Teams, and you'll be able to edit that document here inside of Teams in Word web app, but it will save and overwrite for everybody together. So you will overwrite the single version and you won't be able to get separate versions. So one of the reasons that you use assignments for homeworks is that everybody gets their own copy, and Teams handles that for you so that you don't have to worry about being respectful of other people's comments. It's good if you want a single document where you're getting everybody's ideas and collaboration together, but it's really awful if you're using it for setting work. So posts for communication, getting information out there, but don't try and use it for setting and retrieving work. Homework is assignments, and classwork is OneNote Class Notebook, which we're going to go on to next. But before I go on to OneNote Class Notebook at the top here in the we space, are there any final questions in the group for posts? Is anybody want to ask anything? I can see that Tiana is asking something. Yes, you can pin posts. I'll show you how to do that now. So in my class, I think I've got a couple of pinned posts at the bottom. You'll get a green pin on that if it is pinned at the bottom. No, it might have been in the staff team. So if it was that I wanted this lesson here, this link to this meeting, I click the three dots and I can pin there. So that will then pin it. If I pin it there, I'll get the green pin on the side, and then that pins that post there. And I also get the green strip down the side to signify that that's a pinned post. So you can do that there. There are other options that are in here on the side, and we will look at some of them in later sessions, such as accessibility tools called Immersive Reader. There's also translation tools to translate into other languages. So you may be writing this in your native language, and I would be in English, as I'm primarily English speaker, but you can have other people then translating it into their language. And if you want to unpin something, it's also the same place, so you can unpin it from there, and then it will unpin it and let it just jump back into its natural place in the feed. So there's lots of ways of doing that. We're going to go look at OneNote Class Notebook next, and OneNote Class Notebook itself is a really powerful tool. I would advocate using this for your day-to-day teaching. It's very powerful and it's got a lot of scope of what you can do with it. So easing yourself in gently is the key to this, but starting with the basics. OneNote Class Notebook is like having a ring binder folder or a lever arch folder for your class, and you can then organize in there all of your resources and you can file them neatly. And that's essentially what OneNote Class Notebook is. It's like a digital version of that physical ring binder folder or that lever arch folder. And if I press what looks like a set of books there, I've got sections in my OneNote Class Notebook, and the sections you can think of like cardboard dividers you would have in a physical paper file with the little tabs on the side where you might write the names of the subjects, and then you'd organize all your resources as a teacher underneath the relevant section, and those would be the pages here in OneNote Class Notebook. And in the real world, there might be pre-hole punched pages, and it could be A4 line paper, plain paper, squared paper. It might be a photocopied sheet that you've hole punched. But OneNote Class Notebook works in exactly the same way. OneNote Class Notebook is the whole folder. Here on the left, these are the sections for organizing your work. And with you and your pupils, you can be in here together. So that's why it's good for collaboration. And then unlike maybe a book that you've got in school, you can endlessly add pages. And then the pages themselves here, if I expand it, is just a open white canvas by default, but you can change the colors of the background. You could have different types of backgrounds in there as well. You see here you can have typed text, you can insert pictures, you can use the drawing tools that you've got in OneNote Class Notebook to ink it directly in, so you can do that over the top of a document or a picture to annotate. And you can often make further cost savings here. And a lot of schools that I've worked with in the UK are now starting to use OneNote Class Notebook. And I know I do in my daily teaching. I have this open on the board. And whatever type of interactive board I'm using, I use the inking tools here and I record on the page. The other really powerful reason for doing that is that pupils have their own section here. And then when they go home at night, if they've been doing some work, so if this was Henry might have a section for maths, English and science, and Henry can get to his own work in his sections there and his pages in maths, English and science, but he could access them to help support his work he's doing in an assignment for a homework. But for me as a teacher, I don't need to lug books around any longer. I can get to all of that here. And if we've been doing some work collaboratively during the lesson and I've been recording on the board, whatever I've written on the board during the lesson in the daytime, they can access it from at home outside of school hours. So that whole taking learning beyond the classroom, or the scope to do that, is suddenly blown wide open by using OneNote class notebook in Teams. You can embed pictures in a notebook page. You can even drop files onto the surface of a notebook page. If you are going to insert a file, then the pupil can click it on the surface of the page. So if I looked in Collaboration Space, and I'll explain how Collaboration Space works, but I was making a class charter with some pupils. We were ticking off what is and isn't acceptable. And it was a London school, and one of the other classes, called Big Ben class, had a class charter that was already recorded as a PDF document. So I dropped the document onto the surface of the page, and then all my pupils just clicked the document and they opened it up here inside of Teams, inside of OneNote class notebook, and they could see that PDF. You've got various ways of inserting files, and the Insert tab is up here at the top. So if I was there, I can either insert a file, and that's how I got that PDF in there, or you can print out a file. So if you subscribe to other platforms, paid platforms, to get resources to save you having to waste time as a teacher creating them, you can print that PDF onto the surface of the OneNote, and then you can annotate over the top. So it allows you to save time and reduce your workload and work more efficiently that way as well. So there's a huge amount of what you can do within here. When you first set up your OneNote class notebook, if I go back out to Teams and I go into a blank team here, this is what a class team looks like when you first come to it. Your OneNote class notebook won't look fully developed like the one that I've shown you. You've got to go through the setup wizard. So you press set up class notebook, you choose blank notebook, and it will tell you you're going to get certain sections created. You go to next, and then you get to choose what all the sections you would like to be for the pupils or for the students you're working with. By default, Microsoft picks these pretty generic sections like handouts and homework. You can either overwrite them or you can delete them, and you can add more in, and then you press the create button and it will make them for you for the students. And once you've got them in there, if you decide you like some more sections included, because at a later date you start teaching a new subject, or you think of something else that you think would be useful to organize it, when you go into your OneNote class notebook, and there's a tab in here called class notebook, you can get yourself in there, and then in class notebook here is a button where you can then manage those sections retrospectively, and if you need to add in more sections, you can do that there. So there's lots and lots of ways to do that. You could also lock certain areas. So the collaboration space, if we go back to it as the section on the side, collaboration space works that pupils and students and staff can all get together in here and they can work together. So if it was my English work, I was looking at the history of Egypt, and we were looking at housing, we're looking at food, culture, religious beliefs, and I might have all 30 of my class in here working in one page in the collaboration space. You need to teach them to be respectful of each other's work, because they would all be working on the single sheet. So you know which person's made a contribution. I often write the names of the pupils or the students that are focusing on a particular area. Or you could do the reverse of that, and you could have Egypt housing as one page, Egypt food, Egypt culture, and so forth. And then you could have small groups of pupils working on those pages, but they could click in between, just like me moving the music, and they could go over and see what's on the other page. And that would facilitate that collaboration, even though you haven't got them in a distance learning scenario with you, or maybe as it's going to be in the UK from Monday in a hybrid scenario, you can still work with the people there at home as successfully as the people that might be back there in the classroom with you, and they could all be in there together still working as one class, but they could be doing it over OneNote class notebook in Teams. It may not be that collaboration is the thing that you want to do, so there's also content library in here. The content library is controlled by the teacher but accessible by the pupils. So if I was going to English, and as a teacher I've produced in the UK, we have something called SPAG, spelling, punctuation and grammar, and it's about looking at the technical side of English, but we might have had a worksheet there that's been produced. And now by placing it into the content library, have stopped pupils from being able to edit it like the collaboration space. They can look at it, but they can't change it. I can change it as a teacher. I can move it around as a teacher, but they have only got a read-only version. If they want to get their own copy, they right click over the page, they select move copy. I, as a teacher, have got the move option, but normally you restrict that for pupils so they can't move the original copy out, and they just have the copy button. And if I was Henry, I would open up my area, and I would only see my area if I was in here as a pupil or a student. I would say this work is English. I click on my English section and I take a copy, and then a digital copy moves over into Henry's area, and he can carry on in his English section working on that. But as a teacher, I can go and see what Henry's up to, because I could go to his English work. I could see what he's been doing. So it might have been his review of The Hobbit in 500 words. And clearly Henry hasn't got very far at the moment and he needs a bit of encouragement. But I can still manage that work, that daily live work, without being with the pupils or students. So you've got collaboration space, editing for everyone, content library. You can edit as a teacher, read only for pupils. I'm logged in today as a member of staff, so I also have the teachers only section, and the teachers only section allows me to make resources in private before I share them by moving them to the content library or the collaboration space. But it might be I am making something in here about, let's say, addition and subtraction. I want to get that page out there either prior to starting the lesson or during the lesson. You've got lots of tools in here that can help you with that. So again, on the class notebook tab, I could choose to distribute that page. I can send it out to groups of pupils or students I'm working with in my class. So I click that button, I get a little sidebar that comes out, and then in there I can either choose to send it out to my whole class. The way that I made that was by clicking new group. If I just go into there for you, press the edit tool, so it's like I was coming in for the first time. I've labeled that up whole class, but you can always, as you can see, go back in and re-edit. You tick the 30 or so pupils you might have working with you, you save it, and then that locks them in as a whole class. You might have intervention groups or small groups that you're working with for targeted activities. So what the philosophy here is that you can get that resource out electronically over the internet, even though you might be working in an entirely different location to your pupils or students. You tick whole class, you press next. You say, well, this is going to be for maths, so I want it to go into the maths section of their area. I scroll to the bottom here, and then there's a button. It's hiding off the side of the screen there. Doesn't seem to be working for me today that I can get down to that, but there's a button there called distribute, and then you can fling it out electronically across the internet. You can do the same with individual pupils. So instead of this being a piece of work for the whole class, it may be this is an extension activity. Sydney contacts me during my live Teams meeting and says, look, Mr. Long, I've completed everything. I'd like something to get me going and extend what I'm doing. I go, don't worry, it's not a problem. I'm going to send something into your maths area now. I might just change the size of my window here, see if I can get that to display on screen. Yeah, now I can get to the distribute button. I say, I'd like to distribute this to your math section. I click the math section there, press the distribute button. And then for them, it's going to send the copy electronically. It happens in seconds, whether you're sending 1, 30, 60. For me as a teacher, I can see when it's going to get over to them. I can say, look, it's now with you. And then they go to their own section and they can pick that up and continue to work with it. There's lots of other really great tools in here that you can use to support your job as a teacher. So if I'm teaching maths, we've got a math solver tool in here that pupils can use independently, or I can use it live during a session. So if I highlight my calculation and I go to the insert tab, click on the maths tool, it will slide out from the side there. It will pick up the calculation I've got highlighted. If something's wrong and there's an operation or a digit that it doesn't recognize because my handwriting's awful, but I've done it in a hurry, I can fix it using the fix it button. But then the maths solver tool could be used independently by the pupil or the student, or I could use it during a live lesson as a teacher. Say, well, let's evaluate, what's the answer? And then all of a sudden it will come up with what the answer is. Then, well, that's all well and good, but that's only half of the thing. We can find out why or how we got to that, so we can find out steps to getting to the solution. Here is that Immersive Reader tool. Again, we'll look at that in later sessions called Accessibility Tools from Microsoft. But it gives us one possible way of our journey to the answer. But that means that some of the pupils that are able to do so could be independent in finding the answer or the solution without me having to break off maybe from another group I'm working with or delivering whole class teaching. Now, once I've done that, I can then have a practice quiz generated from the same tool. And then here on the screen, I can choose how many questions I want. It will base those questions on the calculation that I've highlighted, and pupils can have a go in real time in the lesson. Instead of me preparing questions, then the Math Solver tool can use terms that are liked to the calculation that I started with. It will use Microsoft Forms. It will set some further questions based on that one calculation, and then it can be submitted by the student at the end, and it will self-mark, so I don't have to go through and waste valuable learning time, but the other pupils could go through and check their calculations themselves, and they can either come back to the tool there, or I may have something on the surface of the page at the top that says, if you get stuck, or if you're struggling with this, click this link and it goes off to another website, or if you need something as an extension activity because you've had a go at the generated questions, click this link and you can have a go on there. So you've got this huge scope to differentiate learning all within the one sheet of OneNote class notebook here together. So we're going to go that far today with getting you started, but there's lots of other tools that can be used. And what we wanted to do was give you a flavour of how OneNote class notebook could work within a class team and how it could work for daily teaching. But don't forget, don't try and bend it for assignments. That's what you've got homeworks there for, and assignments, class notebook for daily teaching, and post for communication. And it's something that will be a cornerstone of your application for becoming an MIEE. Microsoft will want to see how you've maybe tried to use it during lockdown, during the COVID pandemic. It might be that you've already got some evidence of that because of what you've been doing. It may be that after today's session, you're going to try it just with your class only because you've come along to this session because you may be that digital leader in your school. But start to show how you've taken some of those tools that are available to you and tried to use them to enhance the learning experience in the school. Maybe it's just you've used it to bring community together. And do you know what? Staff have been feeling isolated. So instead of it being in a class team, you could show the evidence that in a staff team. And maybe you've done things like have a virtual coffee morning and you can't get together, but what you can do is you say, do you know what, we're going to set together half an hour at the end of the day and we're going to have a cup of tea, we're all going to have a slice of cake, a piece of fruit if you're being healthy, and we're going to meet together and we're going to celebrate that over Teams because we can't physically get together for a little while yet. So there's lots of different ways that you can utilize this, and what we're trying to show you today is possibilities of the tools that you've got at hand, but for you to decide how it best fits in the context that you are currently working. Any questions on those before I duck back over to the presentation to finish off for today? Feel free to unmute if you wish, or you can pop anything into the chat if that works better for you. Just going to swap views for now. Just going to reshare the slide deck with you. So as far as the program is going, you can find out about further sessions either by clicking the link that Tiana has just put into the chat or by looking at the other sessions I have on screen in the table. So we've got a rough timeline mapped out for how these different sessions are going to work with you. Today, as you can see highlighted in green, we're looking at getting started with hybrid or remote learning using Teams and OneNote class notebook and how you might incorporate that into your MIEE application. You can see there moving forwards, we're going to focus on a different set of applications along with looking at a different aspect of your MIEE application as we go through. So what we've got is additional information about how to structure each of those questions. We've got almost like syllabus from an exam board, a detailed version of how to do it, but we are also inviting you to network with other previous MIEs in the UK. So we've got a session set up with Lanny Watkins and Nick Clark. What they will talk to you about is how to use the MIEE program to benefit you or also to benefit the school or the institution you're working with. We have a showcase school day planned in conjunction with a partner company that we're working with The date for that when I joined you on the first launch session was going to be the 26th of May. It's now looking highly likely that's going to be the 28th of April. I also appreciate that not everybody here is joining us from within the UK. So we did originally plan for that to be a face-to-face day with the ability to join remotely, but there's a high degree of possibility that that's going to be entirely remote. We will give you more details on the structure of that event Showcase Schools Day as they become available, and we're hoping for them to be finalised by the end of this week or the beginning of next. So keep your eye out in the MIEE team for more details on that. We, as a company, work quite closely with Microsoft. There's several people that you would benefit from following in Microsoft. Jen King is a key figure in the UK education team, and she has a Twitter handle there to follow. She will regularly post about new developments about Microsoft Education. Mike Tholfsen is American, and he is in the US education team, but has a global presence. He will have all the cutting edge developments that are coming regarding Teams and Office 365 and Microsoft, so do follow him. We also have our own Twitter handle, so please follow Turn It On. We post regularly ourselves. If you've done that and you've got any additional questions, you can contact Microsoft directly from the address at the top. But you've got two ways of contacting the Turn It On team. If you've got a general inquiry, send it to office@turniton.co.uk. If you want some help with directly this program or the training element that you are here today, you are going to contact marketing@turniton.co.uk. We would dearly love to get your evaluation and feedback, and it's something that helps to shape not only the course that we're delivering now, but also future courses. So Tiana is going to drop into the chat for you a link. It's very quick and only a couple of questions, but we'd love to get your insight and your feedback to either inform future sessions that you're going to join for the MIEE program, or other training sessions that we're running on other subjects. So please do that. You've already got the link to our YouTube channel where all other recording is located. And Turn It On itself, in partnership with Microsoft, works in education within the UK. We are primarily UK based, although we are starting to branch out to Europe for some services. We can help with all things Microsoft and Office 365 training. We can either deliver individualized sessions for additional consultancy, or we work regularly with other educational institutions designing bespoke CPD programs to run over a number of months. We've got consultancy about how to move to the cloud or roll out and project manage that. We've got project management services. We deliver technical support in the UK. We've also got MIS teams that can support you with MIS and the sync tools. And we also have GDPR for UK data protection and compliance. So we are a very big player within the UK education market, but also we obviously want to reach out to people globally, and that's why we're working with you today in conjunction with Microsoft. So at that point, I just want to ask if there's any questions remaining that need to be answered, or anything you'd like to know. Please do unmute and speak with us, and we will do our best to answer them for you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So I'm from Niger Republic.
It's great to speak with you.
Yes. So I joined the meeting late because I have a problem internet connection.
Okay.
Internet. So I'm asking about. You said there's an evaluation. Are you going to send the link?
Yes, in the conversation bar on this Teams meeting, which looks like a speech bubble, there's all of the links that we've just been discussing. So there's the evaluation link, there's the link to our YouTube channel where you can find all the recordings for our training sessions. So everything is there. That's the bar with the conversation speech bubble. It's all in there for you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Good to have you along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the lesson, so I learned a lot of things, even though I came late. Yes.
That's fabulous to hear, and hopefully we'll see you again on some future sessions as well.
Yeah, I don't speak very well English because I teach French. I'm the head of department, French department, and now with coronavirus, so there's we do online lesson for the kids, so it's really interesting. Thank you.
Your English is amazing compared to French. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else got any questions they would like to ask at all? You can either pop them into the conversation and I'll read them from there, or you can unmute and speak. See, somebody's typing something. I will just stop the recording at this point, and that will come up on screen for